Type in, I have tinnitus. Type in, I have diabetes. You're going to get an answer that says there is no cure. And that's not acceptable. And so Sanare is built to say, no, there are options, but we need to know your whole story. The answer is in the story. That's where we connect the dots. Remember, the modern medicine is great. They do God's work and they save lives, but there's a bigger world than that. And we're all adults. So our whole platform is build your story. Not so easy. We'll get into that. That should open up new doors.
Hey, beautiful soul, and welcome to Dear Body, I'm Listening, the podcast for women living with chronic illness, invisible symptoms, and the quiet grief of feeling dismissed in your own body. I'm Donna Piper, and here we tell the truth about healing, the messy parts, the hopeful parts, and the parts no one prepared us for. This is a space for real talk, nervous system safe support, and learning to trust your body again, one breath at a time. Hello, beautiful listeners. Thank you for coming back to the show today. I have Haresh Patel on. I'm really excited to talk to him. He's had an incredible journey, and through his journey, he has written a book and started an AI program, and he's here to tell us all of these tools that he has used to help him through his journey that I think will totally help us 100% on ours. So welcome, Haresh. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you, Donna. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So let's just dive right in. I know you have a book. It's called The Ghost in My Body. And then you also are working on this AI platform. And I'm so curious about both. But before we get into it, can you just give me a little bit of background on who you are, anything you want us to hear about your personal life and any part of your story?
Oh my God, I could go on for hours, but I would say that as passionate I've ever been on building this platform. And I wrote the book kind of by accident. I got fired in 2009 after 25 years of kind of a straight line career growth. And I couldn't find a silver lining in 2009. So I made my own silver lining. I said, you know what? Nobody's wanted me to be a CEO. So I'll become my own CEO. I'll write a book one day. Getting fired was my luckiest break.
Oh, I love that. I don't love that you got fired, but I love that
I know
you
what you're saying.
found like something really positive through it.
Yeah, so I had to create my own silver lining. And so 11 years later, I sold the company after accidentally becoming a software company. And now I had to write the book because I think I had to write the book either way. It was a good ending or bad ending. If it spectacularly crashed, it would have been a different book. So I started writing it. And that was the impetus for writing The Ghost in My Body. But it turned out to be, instead of, I would say, rags to riches, and I'm not rich, by the way, but immigrant, first time, no speak English, all that sort of good stuff. There are lots of books, lots of good business books. And every time I wrote the manuscript, everybody said, you know what, but this little nugget you have here about your personal journey is so much more interesting. We can read about you on LinkedIn. And so I started stripping away everything. And at the end of the day, instead of saying the luckiest break, getting fired was the ghost in my body. That was the intriguing story. And so that's kind of the back channel of how the book came, because I promised myself to create a silver lining. And then the passion came in March 2023, right about when everybody wanted to talk about AI. It was the buzz. Every single news feed was AI. It still is, even after 3 years, but it was now new. It was a shiny object. And I'm visiting a doctor, my 12th doctor. Remember, the book says The Ghost in My Body, what 12 doctors couldn't find. So it's my 12th visit. I have a prescription. I'll tell you about it a little bit later in terms of what to do, but I'm not believing it yet.
Okay.
Of what I needed to do, and we'll get into it. But this 12th doctor did something very different. I drove to Sacramento. He's a vet, actually. But then he got a degree in medicine, didn't care for it that much, so he went and got a degree in holistic medicine. And, I did the normal insurance card, fill out the form, waited, got to the nurse's station, did all the vitals, answered all the questions. And then I was moved to his office with the folder sitting on his desk. He came in and we shook hands and he said, Haresh, I don't plan on opening that folder. I don't want to know why you're here. So, wow, this is unusual. Because I want to know about you. Start from the beginning. So I told him the whole story of the ghost in my body, which I'll share with your listeners. And he spent 2 hours, which you don't get with doctors. That was clue 1, right? Clue 2 was he wanted to know me. He wanted to know all of me. He wanted to know my story, who I was, right? And Then he went on the whiteboard after 2 hours and he said, listen, Haresh, I've been trying to fill in these 8 quadrants. And the reason you're still suffering is because you saw 12 specialists. Each one was right, but they were wrong because they reached behind the curtain and felt one part of the elephant. I'm playing Sherlock Holmes. I'm going to take the whole curtain off because they're all interconnected. The ghost in your body is the energy vector. That's the energy quadrant. He just simplified the whole thing. They're all interconnected. And we're going to find the needle in the haystack on why you have what you have. And when he said that, I quite frankly didn't care about why I was there as much as I was suffering. I just saw the exact same architecture of the company that I built and sold.
Oh, wow.
The platform that we built was for financial investors that invest in airports, bridges, toll roads. You name anything that's physical, they invest in. It's called private market investing in real assets, not to get too technical. But their problem was the exact same. They would have billions, if not trillions of dollars invested across the world, across different assets. So think of that as each one has thousands of documents, financial models, handwritten notes. And what they were trying to make sense of was, wow, the Strait of Hormuz just closed. Oh, no, wait, that we just signed a peace deal. Oops, but the peace deal is about to fall apart. So each one of those little events alter the valuation of that portfolio. Now think about the human body. We're an asset. We have hundreds of records scattered over decades, and we never have them in one place. And we have a symptom, which is a scenario. It's something new. And I said, this is the same data architecture. And now with AI, I can actually bring a more systematized way for us to build our story because the answer is in the story. And that was the birth of Sanare.
That is a very cool, like, what an experience to get to this doctor. First of all, that he took so much time in listening. And that is one thing that I find with my own journey with everything, to finally, when you get to a doctor that either can kind of has a more open mind about what's going on about these things, other than looking at this one little thing, if it doesn't fit or does it fit in the diagnosis or not, that he was willing to spend some time with you and just really hear your story.
Right.
Because, after going to 12, I know for me, I probably went to the same amount, maybe a little bit more. But, I got a little discouraged, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to say my story again. Am I going to get pushback? Like, how is
Well,
this unfolding?
you
That
have
you found someone.
you have one disadvantage. You're a woman.
I know.
Your
That's
diagnosis is twice as long, the sad truth, and twice as many
100%.
doctors because you're dismissed as it's that time of month. I hate to say it,
No, it's true. I've
bias
heard
that's
that.
built in. And so I'm even more excited. My prediction is that women are going to be more part of our platform because the people that we're serving are folks that have gone to a lot of specialists inside the insurance network, outside the insurance network, and there is no real answer. And they cluster around these areas: sleep, fatigue, kind of combined. And these symptoms, by the way, overlap, right? Mental health, I call that the 800-pound gorilla, right? Which is stress, anxiety, trauma, headache, and pain and inflammation. Those 5 areas, there's 133 million Americans that suffer with that, with no real answer. And if you look up some of these modalities, just type in, I challenge any of the listeners, type in, go to WebMD, right? They're kind of like the go-to, or Cleveland, not to pick on any one particular place, but you can go to ChatGPT. Type in, I have tinnitus. Type in, I have diabetes. You're going to get an answer that says there is no cure. And that's not acceptable. And so Sanare is built to say, no, there are options, but we need to know your whole story. The answer is in the story. That's where we connect the dots. Remember, the modern medicine is great. They do God's work and they save lives, but there's a bigger world than that. And we're all adults. So our whole platform is build your story. Not so easy. We'll get into that. That should open up new doors. And it should give who you go to a much broader picture of who you are so they can connect the dots. We don't sit there and say we're a diagnostic engine. We just say that, listen, you're not going to get more than 13 and a half minutes with the doctor. That's the statistical time from the moment they open the door, sit down, catch their breath, because they're running around with, their heads cut off. It's not their fault. They joined this industry to be passionate, to learn the story, to be empathetic, but the system isn't allowing them to spend the time. So if they can spend the first 4 or 5 minutes because you've given them a QR code off our platform, or you've printed it out and brought it with you, or you give them your phone, hey, read this. This will tell you a lot more about me. It's a mini memoir, right? It has all your medical records, all kind of plotted out. It has your story. Oh, there were some interesting events, Donna, that gives me a clue. We're trying to give them more clues to be Sherlock Holmes. That's how the platform works. And then it connects you with, if you have a skin rash, there's an article that I read. I'll just share that with you. Woman walks into the doctor, has skin rash. Who does she go to? First, her GP. Okay, let's put you in touch with a specialist dermatologist. It just makes sense, right? I mean, that's what most dermatologists look at it, give you kind of the same old ointments. Okay, it gets a little bit better, but it comes back. One doctor who studied a little bit more than his field said, wait a minute, have you had an MRI lately that would show what's maybe on your ovaries? She goes, yeah, because it's completely clean. Can you please go back to your doctor and say, double check? And she did. And the doctor said, I don't need to check. And they go, can you please double check? And they double check. There was a tiny little polyp on top of the ovary. Luckily, it wasn't ovarian cancer, which we know is fatal or highly fatal. Remove the polyp and the rash went away. So it's the connecting of the dots. Remember that what the doctor said? There's a whole elephant. And diabetes is the same thing. If the pancreas are producing insulin, then why are you adding more insulin? It's your insulin resistant. And there are 4 or 5 modalities out there that conventional medicine kind of says isn't really real, but you can become undiabetic or non-diabetic.
Yeah, they're really showing that.
It's all around the full story and trying to understand not what you have, but why do you have it.
And then when you went to this doctor that was a vet and he told you, was that appointment when you got a diagnosis, or did you just get a broader picture of like where to look?
That doctor actually, like I said, I got derailed because I walked.
I'm going
to build some software, solve the world's problems, and make other people, not suffer to the level that I've suffered. Right. Yeah. So quite frankly, no, I didn't. Yes, we continued a little bit, but I was on a different mission.
Okay.
My diagnosis, and I'll tell you the story about the ghost in my body. My diagnosis actually came a year and a half earlier than that. And I had sold a company and I had finally been diagnosed with what I have. So for 10 years, from 2011 to 2021, we thought it was a food allergy and it was paprika. I went through, because I was curious, which I think is a message to your listeners, be curious. Don't just, you certainly can. We all want to get on with life, but I think we also want to deep down get off medication, right? And so I became curious. I should have been curious a lot longer. So I went and started digging deeper in terms of what I have. Why do I have this allergy? So we were down this path. So trying to figure that out, everything tied back to oxygenation. First thing that came back as an alarm bell was your iron is so low, you should not be even walking. And because of that, you probably have internal bleeding. And because you don't have iron is anti-inflammatory. You're inflamed all the time. Ultimately tied it to an allergy to paprika. So I eliminated that from my diet. It's not that easy to do because paprika's in everything. Eat those golden French fries. They're gold because they soak them in paprika water.
Yeah.
So I finally, after a year, stabilized myself. At some point, it all got better. But then 10 years later, it came back. This time with a vengeance. And this time, eliminating paprika didn't solve the problem. So in between allergy specialist, endoscopy, colonoscopy, sleep study, all around some form of oxygenation, small nostrils. Maybe we might at some point have to do surgery. So keep that in mind. Oxygenation is kind of the root cause. But 10 years later, it comes back with a vengeance. I'm in really, really sad shape. And I go see an immunologist this time. Actually, I still see an allergy specialist as we're going down that thought process. It's got to be an allergy. And she just happened to work alongside an immunologist. So I got lucky. So I go to her office and I look like hell. And she said, wow, well, let's see what's going on here. And we went through the full hour, which is, again, unusual. I'm getting these doctors that are giving me 1 hour, 2 hours. I guess they're just being sympathetic. But at the very end, she said, oh, darn, I forgot to play doctor. I need to, and she took out the little light, to look up your nose. She's the one who said, yeah, small nostrils. Could be, we'll come back to that. And then she looked at the ears and all the things. And then one more thing. This is going back to the story. She said, oh, Haresh, I forgot to listen to your heart. And I said, oh, Dr. Choi, I forgot to tell you something. When I'm going to unbutton my shirt, you're going to see that my hair stands up. That one little I forgot. Like Columbo, when he comes back, I got one more question for you. She just shrieked and she called off her allergy thinking, this guy doesn't have allergy. Leave the room. You have urticaria. She hit the table, we have that tissue paper on that split
Yeah.
into. She goes, "You have urticaria. It's a mast cell autoimmune disease."
Oh.
And so I was finally at the what I had. So I was misdiagnosed for 10 years, but I didn't know why I had it. We found two options. It was bad or worse. The bad was a shot called Xolair that was produced for asthma patients,
Mhm.
but it worked. She had the knowledge that it worked for urticaria. Urticaria is an autoimmune disease. It's mast cells. They're like submarines that kind of float under the skin, and they have histamines in them. In my case, the hatches have opened, so therefore histamines have escaped. I have no ability to fight inflammation. So she goes, "There's no cure." And I ended up seeing her, and she said two options. There's a shot called Xolair once a month. Fingers crossed your insurance covers it, because otherwise it's $3,000 a month.
Wow.
Take it every 4 weeks. Don't know how long in life you'll have to take it, maybe forever. And the other one, if that doesn't work, there's only one other option, which is prednisone, which is a steroid. I
Mhm.
really don't want you to be on that. So luckily for me, Xolair worked and life was back to normal. Now I'll get
Do
to
you
the,
still have to take it?
so I'm going to get to that. So now I've sold the company. I'm in Costa Rica. We're thinking of a vacation slash maybe is this a place we want to build a second home? We actually tacked on at the beginning. My wife wanted to to go to a wellness center for weight loss, and I joined her because I could afford to lose weight too. It just happened to be that serendipitous. We picked that wellness center. We could have picked any other one. Costa Rica was kind of random, and the person running the wellness center was random too. But everybody at this place, this was just coming out of COVID, so people were coming there for all kinds of mental stress and that mass resignation. It was just a lot of stuff floating around. So everybody's there for different reasons, but everybody's, oh my God, this Dr. Vinod is life changing, game changing. He walks on water. And I turned around to my wife and said, we should meet him. I said, there's an Indian couple like you and me, just out of random in this rainforest, and there's an Indian doctor. We should at least just say hello, right? So we did. And he piqued our interest after dinner. We had a cup of coffee. And I just said, what are you doing? He goes, well, I do this. And there's a paid, I said, you have a paid program? Yep. And I said, okay, I'm in. I'll sign up for it. And he's the one who started dropping some of those clues. Again, same thing, gave me 2 hours, did something very different, centralize your record because we're in the rainforest. I can't take blood tests, can't do urine samples, all the things I need. So just collect as much as you can, but not just the last set of results, as far back as you can go. There was that whole idea of centralizing your records. And by the time I saw him, he had manually plotted it out. We used to do that in software with those private market investors. And then he spent an hour in medical and an hour in a question. Again, it was the art of questioning. Every doctor had always asked all those 11 or 10 doctors, are you stressed now? He asked, when's the first time in life you were stressed? Makes you think. It's easy to tell your stories. Sometimes you have to get it unpacked, right? Sometimes that you don't want to share. In this case, what I'm about to tell you, I wasn't planning to share, but he put me, I would say, more in a psychology chair, the proverbial leather sofa. And I said, oh yeah, middle school, easy. I grew up in New Hampshire. I was the only Indian kid out of 2,000 students. Yeah, and when you bring a funny, smelly looking lunchbox, kids are going to pick on you. And so 6th, 7th grade were miserable. And he goes, you probably had dandruff and dry skin and dry elbows. I said, yep. Well, let's go back further. What else in life? And he took me back to age 6, and then he asked me about my emotion levels. And I said, well, that's kind of the running joke. And my dad says, I'm like my mom. And he goes, tell me about your mom. I said, well, she passed away in a car accident. My dad had gotten his first job offer and out of college. And we were traveling east. When everybody travels west, we were going to New Hampshire. And we didn't make it past the first morning. We got into a car accident, single car accident, trying to avoid a deer crossing the road. He overcorrected and the car tumbled and tumbled. She got ejected from the car. I survived because the whole family blankets and everything and pillows were in the back seat and I was on top of it. So I got wrapped up in that. He shockingly had a seat belt back in 1967. No harness seat belt, but just your lap belt. But anyways, he didn't express sympathy. He just kept saying, well, did you bury? Did you cremate? Where? It was kind of in the closest town possible, small city called Burlington. And then finally, did you have a priest that conducted last rites, or a Hindu priest that did Hindu rituals? And he finally closed his book, and this is kind of where things get a little weird. He just said, like everybody other doctor, we don't have a cure for you. I can give you certain Ayurvedic medicines to kind of calm your skin down, but I do have a prescription for you. He said, your mom's soul didn't rise. People that die tragically. Remember, we all watched the movie, or a lot of us have watched the movie, Whoopi Goldberg and Patrick Swayze, The Ghost. Remember how Patrick Swayze hangs around for quite a few days. Well, she's been hanging around for 50 years plus. She goes, she's holding on to you so tightly you can't breathe. It's the same diagnosis that medicine had, right?
Yeah. It's
And he said the only way you can do that is you have to go to India. You have to go to this very specific town called Bodh Gaya. That's where Buddha had his enlightenment. They've built a Hindu temple on where that tree is. And you have to perform this prayer, or what we call in India puja, and her soul will rise and you'll be cured. And I'm like, the noises in the jungle are making a lot of noise, and I'm like, my head's spinning.
I bet.
I have one Haresh, which is the engineer from Notre Dame and son of a physicist or physics professor. That's Croc.
And then the other one.
The other one is just saying, oh my God, he just opened up a wound that I buried for 50 years. We didn't talk about mom. We buried her and we moved on. And it's been gnawing at me. You just don't realize it's gnawing at you, but it opened up a major scab that was there.
Did you go to India and
but I did eventually. I did eventually, reluctantly, after 3 years from the time he said it, because I didn't believe. So my second message to listeners is stay curious, right?
Yeah.
And start believing in some things you may not want to believe in. Leave all the options open, and if you do, you can find a cure. So I did go to Bodh Gaya. I was we had sold a company. Now it's 18 months after I sold the company, but now they're asking me to leave. So I'm doing a going away party with it. We have a large team in India. So I'm looking at, after the party, we're up in the hotel room and I'm looking at my travel app on my phone, and my wife knew instantly, up, you're looking up where Bodh Gaya is. I said, well, we might as well try. I don't want to take these shots for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So she made all the arrangements, even though she was reluctant about the whole thesis, but she's supportive. And we made arrangements, and we had to spend 2 nights because there's only one flight in and one flight out. So we found a nice hotel in a very small town. I can guarantee there was nothing spiritual. There's no rainbow that came. There's no clouds that parted. The ocean didn't spread wide open. There were no hallelujah songs. It was actually, quite frankly, very unpleasant. Even the priests were crooks.
Okay.
We had agreed to a fixed amount because that's what you do. You pay for a certain amount of prayers, and they wanted more. It kind of, it was just, so anyways, we're sitting at dinner. I'm like totally dejected. I said, all right, well, we struck that out. I don't know what other options there are left, but we tried. And we flew out of the town again, kind of me just staring out the window, kind of disappointed. And we finished the rest of our vacation and came back to the States precisely 3 days and before when I need to take the shot. Sometimes it works 4 weeks, sometimes it doesn't. And I didn't feel the urge to take the shot. I still haven't taken it.
Wow.
So I write in my book, It Goes to My Body, was it a placebo effect? Was it just, it happened to be that my body repaired itself? Or was it really real? And my epigraph on the book is from Einstein, who is kind of the epitome of physicist, scientist, mathematician, probably the most brilliant person that we all can think of. And in his, I don't have the exact right words, but I should memorize them, but it's like, we should all believe in the mysterious. So I left it open-ended, but again, it was just a month before I had that aha around, wow, I can, if there's a systematic way of asking the right questions and building our story, the answer's in the story. And that's what Sanare Health is all about.
It's a beautiful story. And I'm really glad that you haven't had to have the shot. And I do believe that all of it's affected. We're affected by everything that happens to us, and you're not just your mind, you're not just your body, it's relationships. So, that you randomly went to Costa Rica, that you happened to have another Indian doctor in Costa Rica. I mean, they sound random, but it's not really by chance. And that he would tell you this, and that you went there, even if it wasn't, a movie like line of like, oh, I went and this thing happened. And, then I just felt magical, but it's real. Like you went and you did the act of doing what you needed to do. And then that is the prescription to get that done, whether it was like a chorus playing in the background or sitar, whatever, that you went. Yeah. And there is things that affect our nervous system because like how you said, stress of all the buckets, stress is one of the number one things they tell you with an autoimmune disease. But like, okay, how do you, I think everyone tries to figure out how to deal with stress. There's biohacking, there's this, but there's different levels of stress. And trauma is a significant distressing event.
Mhm.
And that could be a tragedy, what happened to your family with your mom, or it could be something else that maybe no one else would think would be traumatic, but it's distressing to you. And how your system responds or doesn't respond. And, like you said, you were probably shouldn't be living with the iron, right? When they were looking at you like, how are you even alive and standing and breathing with what should be going on? But this body is very mysterious because it survives and it makes pathological ways to survive. So I think that's a beautiful and story that you're sharing, and that it also inspired you to help millions of other people that have, I mean, there's the chronic illness, inflammation world, but you can have bronchitis all the time, or you can have, a cough that doesn't go away.
Right.
Maybe it doesn't have to be so symptomatic that you're in like my state when I was looking for answers, or your state that it was so like debilitating. But everyone has a story and everyone is somehow impacted. So what a beautiful story that you've brought, especially you're bringing both worlds, because there is that mystery. What is science? What is the universe? Scientists explore the universe. Like you're a physicist, or your dad's a
My
physicist?
dad's a physics professor. I was terrible at
Physics. Yeah. So that is all about trying to define the
the universe.
undefinable.
Yep.
Yeah. So what a gorgeous story. And how do you get involved in your AI app? Is it an app? Is it a website? Is it a combination? Can you if I was to go and I'm like, oh, I really want to tell my story and I want to do this, can you walk me through some steps, like how to find it, how to register?
So the good news is the platform is built. The website's being built. We're doing internal testing, and we're ready to offer your listeners kind of an early access because we'd love to get feedback from the first 1,000 patients
Okay.
that would love to build their story. And building that story, it takes time, right? So we all got a lot of things to do. But I would say those that have decided to be the CEO of their own health and take control, those that have said, you know what, I'm fed up. I don't want to live this way. I'm not accepting no for an answer. And I'm willing to invest the time. That's our perfect patient. I don't think there's a lot out there that,
Well,
because we all
when
have
you
so much to
have
do.
yeah.
Yeah, but we're busy, right? And so we
Yeah.
have some incentives to first to the finish line to really get their story. We have those scoring mechanisms. So if you fill out the form that you fill out in the doctor's office, well, the good news is once you fill it out, you don't have to fill it out again. Next time you go to the doctor's office, take a printed copy and staple it to theirs and say, cross theirs out and say, I've already filled it out. You may not like my format, but that's all I'm giving you. So we save you time. Nobody likes filling out those forms every time you see a doctor. That's kind of like a minimum score. Your second score is you've dragged all your records from all the different, places you've been to over life. And the
Mhm.
third one, and the one that gives you the most number of points, is that you have unfolded your story. And each one of those, we have upsell services. So up to now, if you do everything self-serve, there's no charge. And you build your story, it starts connecting you with different doors to explore. There's a whole educational center so that we have done a lot of research on some of these areas to say there is a specialist you should talk to. There is a methodology that you should experiment with or learn about. So there's an educational piece, but if you just work through the platform, that part is free, but there's some white glove services. For one, I don't have a lot of time and I'm lazy. I'll write a small check and say, I'll give you my username, password, you do it.
Mhm.
Then I think there's the one I think that people will use the most, which is we have folks that have great training around talking to you like this on a Zoom call that will empathetically ask you the right questions. So either it's free, which is, take your time, or there's these upper white glove services. But at the end of the day, you get connected to different practitioners and people have done this anyways, right? We're just going to make it easier, right? When there wasn't internet, people went to the library. They
Mhm.
found books and dusted them off and said, oh, wow, there's this professor or this doctor in some far corner of the world, and they'll raise a bake sale and beg, borrow from people and break open their piggy bank and they'll fly to Sweden, right? And then the internet came out, made it easier. AI is just going to make it that much easier. But the whole point is you have to have the full story. There's some little clue in there. And that's the beauty of what we do. And then it's the connection. And that's what makes our platform unique. There's a lot of good platforms out there, by the way. I call them my competitors, but AI is my competitor, right? Because people, what,
Yeah.
60 million people a day are going and asking ChatGPT or Claude something. But what makes us different, and there's other platforms that kind of centralize your health records, what they do is the same thing, which is, okay, headache, aspirin. Okay, headache with head injury, MRI. Stop. Let's go back. Let's step back. You need to do what Dr. Reddy did, right? Which is, I want to know about you because there's something happened in the past. Not all the time, but a large part of these 5 or 6 cluster areas we talked about are tied to some event that has to get unpacked. And so we play, in the simplistic term, no different than a travel website or Airbnb, where we connect a person that wants to travel somewhere and a home. But you have to fill out, I want a 3-bedroom, I want it to be in Spain, I want it to be oceanfront, I want it to be under $500, right? On the other side, it's
Mhm.
curating, okay, well, now instead of 3,000 homes, there's 200 that match your criteria, right? So in essence,
Mhm.
we're doing the same thing as we're making this inefficiency of, wait, you shouldn't be going to a dermatologist because your problem is likely here. So we're narrowing your number of people you have to go see, and hopefully you narrow the number of times or the time that it takes to get to something. And I think what makes our platform the most unique is we're going to go where others don't want to go. We're
Yeah.
adults. And like I said, modern medicine has a fantastic place, but so do other things too. If you are curious, you're willing to take control of your health and you're willing to be open minded, then those doors will be open for you to knock on.
And I think my experience, I took a random course in lymphatics because
Hmm.
I thought I had edema and my doctors told me I didn't.
Hmm.
And I got one of his resources had a random book that I bought, and then I decided I'm still not getting answers, so I'm like, "I'm just gonna look at the authors and see if there's anyone near me or if they do telehealth." And one of
Hmm.
the authors happened to be I lived in LA at the time, so she was, like,
Hmm.
20 minutes away in Santa Monica, and that's
Right.
how I got my diagnosis, which led me then to other people to get other diagnoses.
Right.
So it's kinda like, all these were like little breadcrumbs to kind of find the full story. It wasn't just one, but especially having chronic fatigue and all these other symptoms, like it's hard to remember. And I was very academic at one point. It's hard to
Mhm.
remember, like, oh, yeah, I had that symptom that time ago, or oh, I changed insurances. Where is my record now? Or I had these tests before everything was, electric, because I'm
Mhm.
55. So something maybe a test I had in the 80s or 90s for my
Right.
migraine. So that would sounds like you have, at the very least, a place where people can be tell their story and be heard, even if it's self-serve, and they can compile everything together, and you can do your own pace because it takes a little bit. I know if you ask me, like, I don't know, sometimes people ask me questions and then I remember I did it. I don't actually remember that I had this test or whatever. So
Right.
your platform sounds amazing for people that have more invisible or chronic illnesses or unexplained things for a long period of time. But just anyone really to have central, like their story plus their medical things,
Mhm.
because, I said
I
earlier,
think
I
we're
do
gonna
believe
attract,
that it's hand
2
in hand.
types of folks. If you're
Hmm.
healthy, you're healthy, you're just moving great, congratulations. But there's an interesting demographics of people that are really healthy. My children are an example of that, right? 20s and 30s. They're watching what I'm going through and others that are my friend circle going through and relatives, and you're just saying, "I don't wanna be like that." So the
Hmm.
whole longevity, wellness, which they're different, right? Living long, but living unhealthy long is not a good place to be.
Yes.
People are spending a lot of money on DNA testing and, trying to find
Hmm.
out do they have a predisposition to get breast cancer. And there's a whole movement around how do I stay young? How do I stay healthy? And so they also are hunting inefficiently because there's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there trying to
Hmm.
peddle something, these peptides, and I don't know what's out there, but there's a lot of stuff that eventually 10 years from now, I'll find out like, oops, wasn't exactly what it was marketed to be. So we're seeing that group of people quite curious too, because they're much earlier in life becoming the CEO of their health, right?
Yeah. And if you had this information and were ready, like when in your 20s, it would be a different story,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
than in your 30s. As you age, your symptoms maybe were always there, but they get louder at certain points or certain things or life events, especially after having the pandemic and all that stuff, which is a world stressor, and everything else since. So
Right.
things that maybe would never have come through after having such a stressor. So there's so many things that like your platform is great. In my opinion, to be great for everyone to have, because people do not everyone gets to express their story, right? You're culturally, family, whatever, like your dad loved you and your mom and everything, but even that wasn't explored for you, right?
Yep. Yep.
And not out of malice or because of that, just because that's just how it was. So
Yep.
that you have that component to your medical history is not just interesting. I think it's very valuable,
Yeah.
even as the user, to try to explore that.
Right. You made an interesting comment around, the randomness wasn't really random
Hmm.
around going to Costa Rica, around being at that particular location, having that particular doctor there. But I look at my career journey, and especially the 12 years that overlapped with when I was suffering with urticaria. If one or the other didn't happen, I probably wouldn't be here on your podcast, right?
Yeah.
Even if I had not had the career journey by leaving semiconductors and saying, gosh, I'm so bored of it. I want to move to a new industry and try something totally new, and hadn't gone through the Mercatus architecture, I would have had the same meeting with the same doctor, but the 8 quadrants wouldn't have meant anything. Right. So both journeys, I had to go through them to kind of get to the aha.
Hmm.
Right. And so I look at that, and in my book, I said, well, maybe my mom left me the biggest gift for all of us is, that I had to go through the journey. But again, the passion around, if I can solve this, then if I can solve it for one person instead of 4 years, we make it 2 years, right? There are no magical answers. Maybe if you hit the lottery, you can get it right the first time, but these are complex, interwoven issues that kind of tangle themselves up. So it's like you have to untangle a knot. And there's one show that I loved, House MD. The very first episode, it was, patients lie. They do and they don't. It's like that my situation. I wasn't planning not to tell my doctor about my hair stands up, right?
If
Wasn't
you don't
planning.
really know it's a symptom of
Yeah, well, the
something
question
more.
wasn't until the question, like, "Hey, I wanna listen to your heart." "Oh, yeah, when I open my shirt, you're gonna see something." Or she might have observed that, like, "What? Why are you getting goosebumps? It's not cold in here." Right? So, it is about the art of questioning. And if you take a simple tinnitus, where there's about 20 million people that have tinnitus, go and again,
Yeah.
type in tinnitus. First thing, there is no cure for tinnitus. You dig enough like you did. Congratulations, by the way, for you not sitting on getting an answer that you weren't satisfied with. But there are doctors that said, wait a minute, let me dig deeper beyond my specialty. And I ran into a particular podcast, and this is kind of what we've done. Hopefully we've done a lot of curating. We have our own rating system, so we don't put everything and anything up there. This particular doctor went a little bit beyond, not a little bit, a lot. He made a whole, research out of what is tinnitus. First of all, going to the ENT is the wrong thing to do. It's not in your ear, it's in your brain. And there's a part of your brain that is there to do a sound processor. When it doesn't get sound, it creates noise. That noise is called tinnitus. And he said, listen, most ENT specialists don't know these questions to ask. It's the same thing. It's the story. Because you have to time travel 12 months. When did the tinnitus start? Can we live the 12 months before the tinnitus? By the way, did you get into a car accident? Were you rear-ended? Yep. Ah, okay. Well, tinnitus is a function of three potential things that could happen. You've had hearing loss, so go get a hearing test. Because remember, when you have hearing loss, that little part of your brain says, "Oh, there's no noise. I got to create some noise," and so you can calm it down through sound therapy. Hearing aids actually will reduce the tinnitus because now the brain is getting what it was built for to process sound. So go get a hearing test. That could be, or start eliminating that. If you had neck or jaw displacement through some sort of accident or fist fight or whatever might happen, you get it checked out. That means you go to a therapist or you go to a chiropractor and have them adjust it. Or if you've had anxiety or stress, severe, any one of those things will result in tinnitus within 12 months of when those events happen. It's part of building the story.
And that information, yeah. And doctors, ENTs. It's interesting. That's not what is taught in medical school. It's really about, I think it goes back to also being curious about like why. Okay, this is happening, but why?
Right.
And that doctor took it to this other level to look at all the different research about why, and then having that gap led him to have different solutions for that other than like, oh, you're just going to have it forever. So,
Right.
I mean, for as knowledgeable as our world is now with technology and AI and all this stuff, there's still kind of this missing component of how to interconnect.
Right.
And that is the exciting thing, I think, about technology
Mhm.
now is that it's easier to get those connections. Like if you have like the mind where you see connections, that's
Mhm.
one thing, but not everyone has that. So and that you could get information, especially about these connections with your medical
Right.
history. And that is what your platform is doing behind the scenes, making these connections and giving some alternatives after you tell your story. And it is sometimes always about right questions to
Mhm.
ask, correct? Because I have had lots of friends in law school, and that's one of the things they tell attorneys is you want to know the answer to the question you're going to ask so you're not
Right.
blindsided. So there is an art of how to ask questions and how to elicit responses. So that you have the computer self one, then you have a person to interact to tell these questions, and then you have a higher level that you kind of get all of the sensory, how people respond, how they can communicate. And it
Right.
sounds like, from my understanding, you can do a bit, you could start with the self stuff, and then at some point you can go to like, I need to spend some time with someone asking me these questions. And then you can go to, okay, well, or you could just go straight to here. Here's a check. Help me just figure it out right now. I've been
Yeah.
searching for a long time. So right now you're in like collection and kind of, is it, would we call it a beta test or not
Yeah.
really?
Beta testing. Yeah.
Beta
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
in the beta test phase,
Mhm.
and then do you have a timeline of when you're wanting to go to the next level or not yet?
No, we have a very strong business plan for where we want to take this. And then, we have a need for investment. So we're seeking investors right now. So I'm on the road talking to a lot of investors. You know, software companies or any company needs fuel to kind of get there. So I know in my last company, we went through $30 million in raising money eventually to have a successful exit. So I'm in that process of shaking off those cobwebs and rust, learning how to speak to investors. But this one is it's just different. There's just a huge passion, and the employees that have joined me each have, like, you have a story, they have a story. Somebody came from another country and we didn't even have access to a doctor. So forget about even chronic. They have to go 100 miles walking to get to a doctor if they're lucky.
Mm.
Somebody else has, a grandfather and a father that dealt with schizophrenia and mental health. And they're saying, I know the life I lived because of that. And so each person had a different story. We have our head of marketing. She just is so tired of being written off and dismissed. So she's kind of like, I wouldn't call it angry person, but just like, she wants to
She's
say,
just fed up. And she's like,
"Shut up."
because it is. I mean, you started off, and it's very true. The disparity of men and women in diagnosis is
Right,
really insane. I used to know the statistic, but especially for the chronic illnesses that I have, it's all written off of, oh, it must be your age, or it must be hormones, or it must be something else. And
right,
there's real diseases and real impact to lifestyle and quality of life that
right.
I've been living in. Like 1 in 9 women have lipedema and other things that I have, which is a lot of women worldwide.
Mhm.
So, and the knowledge base about it is very limited.
Right,
So that you could go and help you assess of where resources to go. So it's not just, hey, you may have these million things, go to your doctor, but it gives you different articles, research, people to go in. Because you're PCP now, how managed care is for most of us,
right.
you have 15 minutes and their job is to refer. And they
Mhm.
basically ask you, what do you want? And if you
Right,
have something written and like, this is, and you could say medically, this is the doctor I need to see and why, they're
right.
more likely to give you that referral So then you could start the process to
Right.
eliminate or confirm these
Yep.
things, which is
And
so useful.
we're trying to minimize the number of referrals. You still have to go through the referral process because it is a jigsaw puzzle. It isn't the human body, as much as I say it's as similar as an airport or an asset, it's very complex. So you have to build a story correctly. You've got to be able to run a couple of multiple, I would say multiple doors at the same time to really figure this out. And you kind of asked a question, which I'm not sure I've completely finished answering, but our plan is, like I said, we're scaling the company.
Mhm.
For our first, 1,000 clients to really use it, give us feedback because, a product is only perfect when you get a lot of complaints early on. Listen, you have your big ears. Okay, I'm not going to get upset. I get it. I don't know why I put that button in that corner. But those little things matter. But we're talking to lots of practitioners that are eager to join and they want to join for the same reason. It's shocking. Remember, people went to medicine for a passion.
Mhm.
They wanted to cure and they want to heal and they're frustrated they can't. And the world that we're addressing usually comes from after people spend $1.3 trillion a year, 133 million of us in insurance. And then we get like, I bet you a lot of things that you went and did, you had to pay out of pocket.
Oh, yeah,
So
most.
135 billion, it gets spent out of pocket every year. So
Mhm.
that's an inefficient marketplace, which, therapist is the right one, which family counselor is the right one. They might want to specialize more in marriages, another one specialize more in mental health. And so it's all about, in one way, narrowing that journey, but at the same time, opening up different doors. So practitioners are joining because they're equally frustrated, but what they want is they know they're time deprived.
Mhm.
And if we can save them that 90 minutes to extract the story, well, they can start spending time on the problem. And
Yeah.
their biggest fear is, listen, I'm going to charge Donna $1,000 or 2,000 or whatever the amount would be. I mean, it's precious money, right? You worked hard for it. I don't
Yeah.
want they feel like what they tell me is I want to make sure that I know Donna well enough that she's the right patient. I may not be able to help her. So they're
Mhm.
not just there to grab our money, but they want to really genuinely help. So they view our platform as a qualification engine. So from this side, we're looking at saying, who can cure me? The other side saying, I don't have time, but I want to know more and I want to cure. But I want to know that person better so that I can say, you know what? I'm actually the wrong person. Thanks for knocking on my door, but this is who you should go see. Right. So there's an interesting dilemma that's almost mirror images of each other. So I have a slide on our investor deck that you've seen the picture, where it looks like an hourglass to some people, and others
Mhm.
it looks like two
Yeah,
faces, depending on what
faces,
you
yeah.
see. So we have the same thing in the hourglass. We have this 13 and a half minutes where the sand is dropping, and it's like both people came together for the same reason, but they both walked away disappointed.
That's very true, and have how care has been handled and is now really in managed care and people behind a computer that really maybe aren't a doctor and like look at your symptoms and either
Mhm.
deny or accept claims. So people are wanting more, not autonomy, but a way to like really take care of their health to get answers. But to find practitioners. So, what a beautiful platform that solves two insufficiencies. Like, one, if the doctor can't actually do what he wants to do, and if the patient isn't actually getting what the care that they need, that your
Mhm.
platform has this nice middleman of to sort it out because it's overwhelming and exhausting to be sick. So, when you're really sick, to figure this stuff out, do the research, find these things. I mean, I think I'm just like a tenacious person, so
Mhm.
I didn't stop. But I mean, the level of energy I had towards it is very minimal, but I just couldn't stop myself from not figuring it out, my story. But, you know, there's a lot of people that wouldn't have done what I've done. They want something more
Mhm.
simple, which it should
Right.
be. And your platform sounds like it's perfect. So I invite anyone that's listening today or share with your friends to get all these beta customers in. I know I'm going to join to put my story in there to see what it comes up with. I'm going to have the links in the show notes, but just anyone that's listening verbally, where can they go to find you or to sign up or to be a part of this?
Yeah, I mean, just real quickly, the book is on Amazon and Kindle. So goes to my body. You'll have a link on your platform. SanareHealth.ai is how you get to the platform, to the education center, and you'll be able to sign up for give me early, beta access. And we're trying to keep the minimal amount of information. We need your phone number and your name and your email, and we'll put you on a list. And then once it's ready to take a look at, we'll send it to you, and then we're going to encourage you to use it through incentives. And It's all about, we'll get it 99% right, maybe 90% right, maybe a lot less right, but I've just found customers make it perfect. And when you shoot for the moon, if you're off by 1 degree, it's a failed product. So we've got tough skin and big ears to get some feedback. When engineers design it, which we are more engineers, we need that feedback from the folks that want to be part of the beta.
Okay, that sounds great. And it sounds like a beautiful passion project for you. So I really thank you for sharing your story and your book and your time. And also that this is very, like, you're ahead of the curve of where, like you said, you might have some competitors, but you really are at the head of the curve. This is, I
Yeah.
think, the future of healthcare, how to use AI to benefit this
Right.
and to really make, you're really, through AI, connecting humans faster together, the doctor and the person. So it's a beautiful use of what this technology is intended to do.
Good to have you join my marketing team. You're doing a better job explaining what we do than I am.
Ah, some of my gifts. So I'm going to have all the links below in the show notes if that's easier for anyone out there listening. And again, I encourage everyone to take a look at Haresh's book. And also, if you can and interested in joining the platform, it is user friendly to make something user friendly. And I know being part of the invisible illness, chronic illness world, we're not always seen and heard, but it sounds like their team is willing to hear you about how to make it user friendly. What are some things to make it better? What is necessary to really get your needs met on this platform? So thank you for listening, everyone. And until next week. And thank you again for joining me, Haresh. And I look forward to being a part of the beta group.
Thank you, Donna.
Thanks for listening to Dear Body, I'm Listening. If this episode helped you feel a little more seen, a little more steady, or a little less alone in what your body has been carrying, share it with someone who might need that too. And remember, there's nothing wrong with you. You've just been living in a body that hasn't been understood. Until next time, keep listening gently.